Good evening. How are you? Well, I'm standing and talking, although I did walk out in the rain today, and I didn't dissolve in the water, and it was very pleasant, but it was kind of dark when I did it, and I thought I'd had a break in the weather. I know that's too much to hear, but that's the story. The temperature is getting cooler, in the high 60s, low 70s, very pleasant, and humidity is up in the 40s, and the wind is 3 miles an hour. Right here, it's still, and I think I have a cricket in my house. Uh, Let it not dissuade you. I hope to go down to Georgia in the next couple of days, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to. Helene has other ideas. I was thinking about John Adams, who, to my mind, is the first most prominent Federalist. Hamilton, I suppose, is fairly considered to be in that position, but Hamilton was somewhat circumscribed in his ambition, and he was, if you will, an adjunct really to George Washington, and he derived his power from that, whereas Adams had his own power. He was a special figure, even with those things that you might disagree with. And I was thinking of him from what I remember of his writings and how he would feel about today. And what I feel about today is that we, the people, are dealing and resisting against a corrupt and weak set of public officials. We have our moments. There have been people that we've singled out, but I can't help but compare where we are today with what I saw when we had Watergate and we had Nixon. It seemed to me that members of his own party came forward and talked to him and encouraged him to do something. And they tried to find some way to preserve our democracy and punish him. And mostly that was a resignation. And he received a pardon, which implicitly and expressly means you're saying, yes, I've done something wrong. And so we had the symbol system, and it happened within a period of time in which, at one point, a prominent person said to me, it was Ralph Nader, that in Washington, where he was, and we were having this conversation at New York up by Columbia with a guy named Henry Stern, who was a great activist in New York. And he said it was a hydra-headed monster. And if you're familiar with the myth, it is a monster in which you cut off one head and two come back. And so I think that what we've been going through, including with our victories, which are more obvious as compared to what needs to be changed and improved upon. And it's not complicated. Trust, truth, accuracy. Make a mistake, tell us about it. Have a civil discord. Don't misrepresent key facts and so forth. So let me go back a little bit to the recent race to become mayor of New York. I liked Maya Wiley. I'm not in New York. I can't vote for her. We can contribute, and I believe I did. But she represented to me, if you will, the template, the profile, the character, the person that we want in government. And she's in her 50s, so she's at an age where she has the energy and she has the experience to have made a difference. But they chose Eric Adams, a former police officer. And one of the things that prompted me to speak later than usual was all the other things I'm doing in cases I'm working on. But it was around 11 o'clock that the story, as far as I can tell, broke, that he is indicted by the grand jury, has been indicted by the grand jury, and that tomorrow, or Thursday, today, depending on when you hear this, he's going to present himself, and they're probably going to set bail. So the indictment will be unsealed on Thursday sometime. Now, Several people properly asked, because they watched the investigation, they're in New York, and AOC, for example, said he should just resign. And I've been at a distance following it, and I don't think that that's an inappropriate thing to say. But we never had to be here. We could have had Maya. There were other candidates who would have been great for New York. And instead, we get this piece of crap. Is that American politics now? If these people can, well, let's go into what it is he's charged with. He's charged with conspiring with certain persons to funnel foreign money through a straw donor for his campaign. Now, this is just amazing. And it appears that they may have other evidence, including Israel, China, Qatar, South Korea, and Uzbekistan. So when we have candidates who have another master than the voters, we have corruption. And when we're violating the law to bring more money into politics so that by having a larger megaphone, that is a metaphor. Somebody once told me having a larger megaphone doesn't make a difference. But what we're talking about in terms of a metaphor is the money to be present, whether it be on social media, TV, or radio. As you walk past the building, maybe you'll see something because you'll be triggered by the current electronic means to follow you. So we have the mayor of New York, and I don't know how he operates. So I would guess that there'll be a plea, but maybe not. Maybe he'll fight it to the end. We'll find out. Now, there are other examples of this, it seems to me, from the mayor of New York. And in New York, we have the UN, and we have delegations there. And the United States and allies are calling for a 21-day ceasefire across Israel and Lebanon, that is, the borders between those two states. You've probably heard and seen about the reaction of Israel to Hezbollah and vice versa. Now, the U.S. and allies asked for a 21-day ceasefire. And if you read the stories, I expect, you won't hear a word from Netanyahu to endorse that solution. He has a scorched earth policy. Leave nothing living in your wake so that it cannot survive. Now, that hasn't happened so far, but consider the way he's warred, if you will. And I'm not choosing one side or the other in this. I think that both sides, that is, both Hamas and Israel, have violated international law. You can start with killing children, women, non-combatants, people in hospitals, the rapes and things like that, all of this going back and forth. And if there was ever a good argument that religious states are a bad idea if you want to have peace and comedy, this is it. It will never end, it seems. And but the thing about the request for a ceasefire, so what's wrong with that? Well, the position is right, but they know it's going nowhere. So it's a way to buy agreement or tolerance with the people that we're in the right place, but they're not. And that says that we need to do something more. And when the UN was conceived, I always thought it was going to be stronger than it was. The short history of this is that Woodrow Wilson said the war that he had resisted, and I understand that, was going to be the war to end wars, meaning not it was going to be the most horrific, but after this we will have a peace. And his peace was going to be what they call the League of Nations. And he tried to do that. He brought it back to the United States, and the Republicans opposed it. And so we were never a member of it. and it failed by that need of strength and cohesion. So you see the failure to act and to agree, for example, for peace, is defeated by those people who say, oh, no, we want to be isolationists. We may want to conquer the world and so on. Now, so after World War II, we had another chance to create the UN. And there's been resistance to that. And there's a Security Council that can veto actions by the body if, say, the United States or Russia doesn't want it to happen. And that is pretty much a means of paralysis for strong action against a member for, say, committing a war crime. Now, I don't mean to say that all things are wrong. There was an interesting signal, I thought, from Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker. And he was being pressured bigly, to borrow from that man who doesn't know how to speak or think, Mr. Trump, for a SAVE Act, which Trump wanted because he believed it would help him win the election. And Johnson did go forward with it. But now instead what he's doing is he's going to have a continuing resolution so the government will not be shut down. And I believe Monday was the day it would be shut down. And so there'll be a vote. It will go to the President Biden and he will sign it. And then they have more time either to negotiate and do something right or not. Now, the significance of what Johnson is doing, and I don't carry his brief, you can be sure, but the thing about what Mike Johnson is doing is he is gathering the support from the Democrats with those Republicans that stand with him to avoid this shutdown. That's more like government. That's more like what it should be. Now, yes, he had proposed things that were outrageous and that we opposed. I say we, that assuming there are Democrats, independents, and even Republicans that think it would be nice if the government, through the Congress, actually did business instead of just fought with each other. And that goes back to Clinton, because what happened is what happened is we decided the campaign never ends. It used to be there was a campaign and then you'd govern, but this goes back years, and that's not the truth anymore. There was some flack, you may remember, about Vice President Harris going to the U.S.-Mexican border because it was part of her portfolio as the vice president. Now, as the nominee for the Democratic Party, she's going to go down and talk about the issue again. I'm sure she's going to talk about how Trump interfered with might have been a possible solution. And she is proposing to use new border agents and technology and so forth. The thing about it is, and on the Democratic side, I've heard more of this. If we're going to remain a place for political asylum for people from other nation states that are being put upon and suffering, then let's do it right. Meaning, let's have the buildings that we need at places or a place along the border between Mexico and the United States. Let us have and appoint the judges so that we're not running short of judges and they're overburdened, and so that they can decide these cases. If we're going to allow people into the country, we have to monitor them. And I'm not talking about 1984 monitoring. We have to be able to summon them to their case, deal with it, grant them asylum or not, and then send them out of the country if they're not admitted. The problems of the world have increased manifold. The notion of complex mathematics and fractals and so forth is the notion that tiny changes at the beginning of a cycle of events can lead to very dramatic and quick instances of terrible or good things. The world right now seems to be gathering up a weakness in its strength and cohesion and discipline worldwide. And we in the United States, it seems to me, have an opportunity with this new ticket and the energy surrounding it to bring America back and thereby to broadcast to the rest of the world what we can be. But at the heart of it, even now as I talk to you, the Trump's assassin at the golf course has been charged. Now consider, how quickly was he prosecuted and how slowly, to this day, has anything serious and severe been done to Trump? If you need any proof that there's a big difference in this country between how people are treated, that's it. Now, persons of color talk about the privilege of being white. We still hear and talk about anti-Semitism. The things that we focus on that compromise our lives, our lifestyles, our chances of community, and chances of going forward into new and positive adventures is compromised by these weaknesses, by these prejudices, by these, there's a cartoon that I saw a couple of years ago in which there's a couple in bed and they're pulled up with their covers over them and so forth. And he turns to the wife and he says, the problem with our marriage are those gays. Yes, it's not reasonable. It can be kind of crazy. And it shows that whatever fraction of ourselves is emotional, it can cut out what is reasonable and disciplined and intelligent. So Trump's assassin is charged for trying to attack or attempting or thinking to attack Trump. But Trump, who tried to overthrow our government, is still out there doing crazy shit. Hasn't been detained, doesn't get fined when he doesn't go to court, tax the court and everything else. You or I did that as much goodwill as we could possibly have. We would have marshals hanging around us within an inch. When I've gotten excited in court from time to time, and I step up my speech, I've had a guy just right behind me, and I've turned to him and said, "What the hell are you doing standing here in court while I'm arguing it?" But look at Trump. He had all these meetings while he's having this trial, and these people deferred to this criminal. He's a criminal even without indictment. He is a man against the people, and he is the wrong man to be the president of the United States. Now, on the world stage, of course, we have the mess involving Ukraine. And it looks like day by day we're going to have terrible things there. And we're going to say, we're working on it, we're going to get this right. But that's, again, we're saying it, but we're not doing anything. Our American weapons are still going wherever they're needed, apparently. And, this wouldn't change because, again, this is another example of how they do things up here in the greater upper echelons of the inside political game that exists worldwide. And if you're not in the room and you're not at the table, then you don't know exactly how it works. But my reaction to the whole system is we should not be supporting going into Russia. We should not be supporting this war with Lebanon. We should not be participating, at least for this war that starts with Israel in response to Hamas. We shouldn't be involved in those things because all of those are acts of war. And I believe in supporting Zelensky, I do. But I think it's a bridge too far for us to be committed to attacking Russia in a land or air war. It just doesn't, it's just wrong. And it is for Netanyahu an opportunity to keep going forward and fighting, but for us it should not be. Adams says, John Adams, the first Federalist, in my opinion, you might prefer Hamilton, and there were others, and they were of a different sort. I mean, if you read their notes about the Constitution, Our government was made only for a moral people, he said. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other person. So, now moral, some might say, oh, how do we define it and so forth? It's not difficult to define. You don't kill innocent people, okay? You don't war against children. You don't take away the rights of a woman. And it goes on and on and on. And all these things have a signal, and they create an atmosphere of repression. And lazy hosts make it normal when it's not that at all. So I went on a little bit, and it's because I'm not wet and I'm not outside and the wind isn't affecting me, I suppose. But those are a couple of thoughts I have for today based on things that are going on right now. And I see rain. I see rain in my future. So I don't know what tomorrow will be like, but I will get out. But I want to get out and bring you guys with me. So we'll talk. All the best. Bye-bye.